All right, welcome to Halitics. It's a Friday, it's the free-for-all, and very, very happy to welcome Carlos, the left-handed leftist Childs. Hey, Carlos, how you doing today?
What's up? What's up? I'm good, Hal. I'm good. I am on a break from work for a little bit on my vacation time. So, no, I'm enjoying life. How about you?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm always a little depressed because things, they sort of suck, right? Or they really suck. But your smiling face does put a little bit of cheer in my heart. So I'm glad you're doing good.
Yes, always. Hey, they always say you gotta at least lie to yourself that you're doing good sometimes. But I'm actually doing good. So,
well, I think young people, you don't really have a frame of reference, but as you get older and things get even worse, after a while, the joy and happiness that you get out of life will be sucked out of you, and you'll be just a miserable shell, just like yours truly. Well, I'm not really. You can see I'm smiling. There's fun, there's happiness, but it is tough to see so many people suffering. And then also, Carlos, I don't know if this bothers you the way it does me. It's not just the pain that many are going through that's upsetting, but also the bad people at the top who are lording it over everyone else, and there's no consequences for their terrible crimes.
Yeah, we're just allowing. Yeah, I mean, we live in a time where everyone can basically do whatever they want to a point, and it's just like, hey, that's how the world works, right? The rich and the wealthy and the elites can kind of do as they please, and there's no sense of accountability. But I'm seeing changes. The one thing that's giving me a little bit of hope is that I'm seeing changes in, like, your day-to-day person who's more like in tune with what goes on, but also is more in the mindset of like, no, something actually needs to be done. Now, does that get channeled into the right kind of movements? Who knows? But as far as I see, there is a move to kind of at least keep some people accountable, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point that you make. A lot of people are really upset, and people who maybe even back Trump are looking at him and thinking, "Gee, this really hasn't worked out well." But again, are we able to channel the discontent into a movement that really is focused on improving life? And that's an open question at best. Do you want to just remind people, don't forget, click like, click subscribe. Any way you interact with our program, you make things just a little bit better, help us grow. And certainly that goes not just for Halitics, but also for the Left-Handed Leftist podcast. Carlos, right there.
Thank you.
Just put that in your search engine in YouTube to find him. And also, you're big on Instagram, TikTok, right? You're TikTok.
Yes, we are rising on TikTok with our clips, but also on and I'm trying to get you there too on at least Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, all that.
Yeah, I kind of get set in my ways. I do my YouTube thing, and I'm like, okay, and it's a really slow slog, but I justify it.
You're growing, like.
With the Facebook also, but you know what? I justify because I want everyone on one platform so it looks better. And if I can get to that 500 number, Carlos, we're slowly inching there. Very, very slowly. We get there. Apparently, they'll start sending me. I think it's like the minimum check Google will send you is $1. So maybe after like 6 or 8 months, I'll get $1 check from them. We'll see what happens.
All right, capitalism. Yeah. All right, Hal.
And the thing that's so great about that is the viewers will get to see all those ads, right? Because right now you click on Halitics, there's no ads, but at some point you'll see like 15, for what is it, Limu? What is that, like the Liberty Mutual ad? You see all those same ads.
Yeah, a little Liberty Mutual ads.
Right. Or like that soap. There's this soap. There are various soaps. You see different, I don't know, whatever they put on those things.
All right.
Carlos,
All right,
I want your take.
Full-blown capitalist out here.
Say, well, you're doing the same thing, right? I mean, you're not going to turn down anything. We'll take it. We'll take whatever people will give us. All right, Carlos, I want your take. Some of the stories. It's Friday is a free for all. We kind of go back over the week to the extent I can, and I put this up. I think this was my Wednesday thumbnail, and I was sort of like, well, maybe it isn't the final solution, but it's gotten worse even in the past 2 days. Do you hold out any hope right now, or where are you in terms of what we're likely to see be the fate of the Palestinian people, especially those in Gaza, but the West Bank too, over the next few years?
I think honestly we're going to have, like, it's weird to say full blown ethnic cleansing because we're already there, but I think there's going to be expelling of people out of Gaza as the quote unquote Trump / the former UK Prime Minister and all these other people take over, because the United Nations Security Council, like it says here, they back Trump's plan. They're like, all right, cool, let's just do this, get it done with. I think you're gonna have a almost like an offering to the Palestinians, like, hey, if you want to leave, we will send you to, whatever designated countries that we're sending people to. Probably they're going to convince Egypt to open up their borders and just let people in. And then I think everyone else who stays is going to be a very few number. And I think the Western countries are probably going to come together and take it over. They're going to do what they said about building these waterfront properties and turn it into a resort that I believe is still going to be controlled by Israel. And if it's, excuse me, and if it's not, what I think, what I think that they're going to do is they're going to install, like the U.S. loves to do, install one of those like fake me out leaders of the country. They're going to have someone be the president or be the prime minister who really is a friend of the West.
Puppet.
Yeah, puppet. A puppet. Yep, they're going to install a puppet, and that's how it's going to be. And then I think after some years, you're going to have revolution after revolution after revolution, and then we'll see what happens. But not hopeful.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Egypt and Jordan can be prevailed upon to allow the Palestinians to emigrate into their countries, I guess, I hate to say this, welcome that, because anything's better than death. And I think right now we're seeing full blown, and the genocide just continues. And that's how I described it. 33 killed. This is Wednesday from Al Jazeera. This is supposedly during the ceasefire. The official count now close to 70,000. I actually brought back for today's program the slide I used there to show how many people have been killed. When the Nazis killed the Jews, if you were a Jew who got out of Nazi Germany or out of Eastern Europe or France or wherever they were killing Jews, you were glad because at least you survived. You may not have liked to leave where you were from, but at least you survived. So if they can, I want Palestine to be Palestine. I want it to be free. I want it to be determined. The government, they're determined by the current people who live there. But if it's a choice between that and complete and utter destruction, I guess, which we sort of are seeing right now, better they be moved, or better they move.
My question is going to be, what happens with Israel? Because we've already seen Israel wants to take over the Middle East. They want to control that whole region. So my fear is, if we see Palestinians move to Jordan, move to Egypt, does Israel, at what point do they say, oh, well, Hamas or make some other terrorist organization up? They are now plotting on us from Egypt and from Jordan. So now let's move over there, and they're going to keep moving. I think what could be now I wonder at what point they would stop, because I know the United States and the UAE and Saudi Arabia have a great relationship too. So I wonder, are those the countries that Israel says, all right, cool, we can't go that far?
That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about Israel trying to take Egypt, maybe kind of a revenge for Passover, the holiday where the Jews were enslaved in Egypt. And then which, by the way, people question whether that ever really happened, or the historical evidence of mass Jewish enslavement by the pharaohs is actually virtually non-existent. So we don't even know if that ever really happened. It could have just been made up. But, obviously Israel uses whatever it can to justify its atrocities. So I've never really thought of them trying to take over Egypt, but maybe that would happen. It's hard to say who's going to put a rein on Israel, who's going to say, no, you can't do that. Clearly Trump isn't. And the Democrats haven't
won't
either.
either.
Although we talked last week where Kamala, I guess, said what was it? We could have done more.
We could have.
We could have done more, but obviously true. But you're not hearing, at least I'm not from Democrats, any outpouring of support for the Palestinian people, maybe short of Zoran and a few others.
No, I mean, what they're basically doing is they're just like, it seems like only because a Democrat is not president that they're saying that Kamala Harris even said that. I feel like if she was president, she would never have said that there was more that we could have done. I feel like she would have been in lockstep with Trump. We would have seen other ceasefire deals that aren't really ceasefire deals. It's more just a cover up. The Democratic Party does not the Democratic Party is still ran by AIPAC. So they're still kind of going along with whatever they say. Now they may use more flowery language now because they're not in power, but let them be in power. They're going to support the same thing as the Republicans support. And I mean, this even goes for Venezuela, where we don't even see the Democrats pushing back on Venezuela at all.
Yeah, you mean on the killing of civilians by Trump? Yeah, no, we're not.
We have two pro-war parties.
All right, we're getting depressed again. We're going down that unhappy road. We're going to try not to. We're going to try to come up with some positivity. But yeah, no, it's not a lot of stuff to not be happy about. And this really goes to what you were saying, Carlos, about a lot of people are upset with the way things are with our direction. Seems like more and more people are disenchanted. But where are we going to channel that? And can we channel that into something positive? We did a show yesterday. I did a show yesterday with friend of the show, friend of Halitics, just like you're a friend of Halitics, Chuck Benaki, friend of Halitics. And it was sort of like good news, right? Like the good news. And that was maybe good news from Palestine. Doesn't look like it at all. How about this? I want to talk about Zoran for a moment. We did discuss how he and AOC, you saw the story, how he and AOC are telling fellow DSA member Chiose, who I think from his statements is actually to the left of both of them, they're saying don't primary Hakeem. Your reaction, and I want you to focus specifically on how that causes you, if it at all, to view Zoran Mamdani differently than you might have beforehand.
Yeah, I view Zoran a little bit differently than I did beforehand too. I kind of was one of those like leftist people, especially not being a New Yorker, viewing it as it's good that he ran this. It's weird to say a democratic socialist platform because the stuff he was talking about weren't like these huge socialist programs. It's just like free buses, freezing the rent, and things like that, which are like, normal things.
Well, the publicly owned grocery stores, that was kind of a little
Republican towns have done that before.
Oh yeah. No, it's true.
It's kind of like it is.
By the way, there you can see Hakeem with his thanking AOC, and Zoran there was waving his.
It's so
it is really, it's awful. I can't, disgusting. I mean, this guy is really, really bad. And they're like smiling and happy at, is it just, was this just the payback if Jeffries gives you a weak, pathetic endorsement? That's enough.
I don't really think so. I think that it is the thing of, you are a Democrat. Are you really going to stand 10 toes down and say that you're calling for the head of the House Democrats to be primaried out? Because I think they both know if they supported Hakeem Jeffries' primary opponent at this stage of the game, they have a chance of actually beating him. And I think that they don't want that scarlet letter that, weirdly enough, both of them already have on their foreheads of like, oh, we take out the corporatist wing of the Democratic Party. I think a lot of them don't stand 10 toes down on what they say. They're not a Marjorie Taylor Greene in this. They're not even a Thomas Massey, someone who's like, yeah, I'm going to come for the leadership of my own party that I disagree with. So now you have AOC who lied about saying, I didn't even know that this person was even thinking about primarying Hakeem. And then you have Zoran's like, this isn't the right time. We have stuff to focus on.
Yeah, he's like, you can do a lot of good here in New York City. Okay, but So you could do even more good if you take this corrupt militarist, warmonger, Wall Street shill out, obviously, but.
And I look at it worse for AOC than I do for Zorhan, just because, yes, I would expect Zorhan to support him, but Zorhan is the mayor. He's on a more like localized level. AOC got her office by primarying leadership. So for her to tell anyone that like they shouldn't or not try to like support someone who's challenging leadership is one of those things of like, it's okay if I do it, but it's wrong if you do it.
Yeah, I think it's more hypocritical for her. I think it's worse for her also because Zoran did get Jeffrey's endorsement and she didn't, right? I mean, he endorsed Mamdani just a few weeks ago. Maybe Mamdani felt it would look, ungrateful, right? If he said, now I think he should have. I don't care if he put it, I don't care if he wrote like, he promised his firstborn to Hakeem if he didn't, if he didn't oppose any primary challenge. He should still support it. He should go there and go, oh yeah, of course I promised him. I wanted his endorsement. I knew it would make a difference. Not a big difference, but look, it was really close for me to get over 50%. And I did. And probably Hakeem helped me. I think he made a few people a little more comfortable with me. And a few people maybe decided just not to vote at all because they were like, well, if Jeffries is okay with Zoran, then I don't need to vote for Cuomo. So yeah, I did want that endorsement. I got it. Now I'm the mayor-elect. There's nothing Hakeem can do about it. Definitely vote for Chi. Absolutely. He'd be better for the city. I'd like him to say that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why not?
You're right. If you're going to do it, be honest about it. Be upfront and be honest about it. But my thing is that there's no reason for them not to support a primary to Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries is not, he doesn't care about them or helping them politically. It took him all this time just to come out to support Zorhan. So obviously he doesn't want, because he never even said like, people go vote for him. It was more like, I support the Democratic nominee. Like, it just happens to be him. If it was Cuomo, I'd support Cuomo. If it was Cuomo, I think that endorsement would have come day one. Once he
of course, it would have been right after the primary that night or within a few days. Oh yeah, we congratulate Andrew Cuomo and we're going to put the past behind us. The killing grannies and slapping fannies. And did you tell me that one? Did that come from
that
you?
That was the Curtis Sleewa one. Yeah,
it was, but that's old though. He didn't make that up. He didn't make that up. My son was telling me that a long time ago, actually.
Oh, I thought he made that up.
I don't think so. I don't. Killing grannies and slapping face. It's a great line.
It is hilarious.
Maybe
the
he
right
did because
has better jokes sometimes than the left does, definitely. But even on the same point, it's like it shows how feckless Democrat leftists are. I hate to even call them leftists. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party is, because they get into office and then they do the same thing that establishment Democrats do. They say it's more important for me either staying here or I need to just toe the line. And we can even look back at, and AOC has a big history of doing this, even when it was the Iron Dome funding, when Nancy Pelosi like made her cry. And then it's like, okay, well, let me just switch my vote and go along. Or with her trying to be the minority chair for the oversight,
the ranking House oversight, right?
And she told them, if you all let me be the chair, then I will like not support any primary to any Democrat.
Right. But they didn't. So why is she still going along with her promise that they didn't give her the quid pro quo? She should say, well, hey, listen, if I was a ranking House Democrat on the Oversight Committee, I wouldn't support a challenge to Hakeem Jeffries, but I'm not. So yes, I do. You'd like to see that. What about this story real quick? I don't know if you saw it, but the Zionist community is very upset, or they claim to be. This is New York Post here. About this, I think her name is Biscard Church, L. Biscard Church. I think I got that right. I'm going to look it up. She's according to the Post there, the secretive DSA op who helped craft his lefty platform. I do note that back when she was, I think at Swarthmore back in 2011, she did overtly support and write in support of the Palestinian people. Zoran has repeated that if Netanyahu's in New York City, he will call on the NYPD to arrest him. So is that giving with one hand while taking away with the other? I mean, are there some things we're so glad about with Zoran?
Yeah, I think he's definitely trying to appease both sides of the Democratic Party. This is a good thing. I'll say he is a progressive Democrat. They do things that we like and they do things that we don't like. He's not a true leftist Democrat, because a leftist Democrat is going to probably do almost all the different things that we like and fight against the party. A progressive, I see it as you will appease the party to stay in some kind of neutrality favor, but you will also do little things for the progressive wing that kind of makes you acceptable. I mean, this is similar to his appointment to like Lena Khan in his transition team. Like, he does those good things, his chief of staff, Lena Khan, but then at the same breath keeps on the Zionist police chief of New York City as well. So you take your good with your bad, I guess. He's a politician.
I think the announcement or calling on Osei not to primary Hakeem Jeffries, to me, is unforgivable. I'm not saying I'm not like okay with some of the other stuff, but to me, what Americans find so dispiriting about politics is this hyper partisanship, this refusal to challenge your own party. Thomas Massie in Kentucky, as I understand it, is the most popular politician in Kentucky, and he's going to be facing a torrent, a hydrant, of money against him from, especially from AIPAC, but from others as well, because he's taking on Trump. But Americans love the fact, Kentuckians, I should say, love the fact that he takes on his own party. The same is true for Bernie. When Bernie was going after Hillary and frankly, Obama, he was the most popular politician in America. People said, well, wait a sec. We love those who will take on the corrupt elements in their own party. For Zoran to, I can't, I get you make a promise. Because I really truly believe he did make that promise to Jeffries. But I think his responsibility to the people of his city should outweigh that backroom deal that he made.
You're right. And I mean, I don't even think he had to make that promise to him at all, because I think without Hakeem Jeffries' support, he would have won.
Well, you said that before. I remember you said you don't think Jeffries matters at all. No.
I think that Hakeem Jeffries, in my opinion, needs Zoran more than Zoran needs Hakeem Jeffries, because when the primary happened, Zoran overwhelmingly won Hakeem's district in New York City. So it's kind of like at some point, these progressive politicians need to realize they have more power than the establishment people in specific areas. So they need to actually use and actualize that power. You're right. I'll say this. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene did a press conference, I think, recently, where she called Trump a traitor for what he's doing.
Well, he calls her a traitor. He calls her Marjorie Traitor Greene. I don't know if but she's been very critical of him, no question about it.
And so I am assured that her primary comes up, they're going to be Republicans going after her, and Trump's probably going after her to take her out. But these people, like the Republican side, they don't let up when they are like, no, this is what we want to do. I mean, even think to the Republicans who took out Kevin McCarthy. Like, Republicans have a history of like, no, we're taking out our own when we want to. The progressives don't have that same fight in them. They don't have the fight of, like, I could never see.
Well, the left, I want to know, because I talked about this a little bit. Because I see it a little different than you do. The left side, the left margin of the Democratic Party absolutely does not have the stomach to take on the center. But the center of the Democratic Party is more than happy to go after the left at every opportunity.
No, you're right. You're right. You're actually right. The center will take on Democrats more than they would take on Republicans.
Yeah.
They would rather a Republican. I mean, even look at here in Maryland. Now you had Democrats who were having Democrats for Larry Hogan when it was Larry Hogan versus Ben Jealous, and Ben Jealous isn't some socialist. Like, he's just a progressive Democrat.
Yeah, and he's proven to be a bit of a disappointment too as time has gone on. But I was a big supporter of Ben Jealous. But and I think he really meets exactly what you were saying about progressives. Sometimes they do some things we like, and other times they don't. And I guess you have to accept that.
On the board of Jewel.
Yeah, that's an issue. There were some other things where I was concerned about Jealous. But that said, I thought he ran a pretty good campaign. I did not like, I don't know if you know this, Carlos, and let me just go ahead and put this up. We'll get to this in a moment because I want to talk about this story from Michigan and delve into it a little bit. But just before we go there with Ben Jealous, I actually wrote an op-ed which in support of Jealous, which was in the Baltimore Sun. I was very happy about that, very proud. And Ben hugged me for it. He was like, "Oh, you wrote that," and he was really appreciative. But that's he awesome. Quickly kind of soured. And one of his worst choices was Susie Turnbull to be his lieutenant governor.
Who was
she's an ardent Zionist. She's a big banker, too. I got into it with her about the problem of overly influential bankers. And she's like, "My husband's a banker, and, you're besmirching my whole family." And I'm like, no, I'm saying that private equity, which is, banks, buys up important, businesses that employ people and strips them of their assets and takes them into bankruptcy. And that's a problem. I'm giving you specific examples where our banking system is a problem. And she didn't want to hear it. And she also posted a whole bunch of crap couple of years ago after October 7 about how poor Israel and Israel's a victim and this and that. So yeah, even when they do some good things, maybe Jealous felt he had to appease the Hillary Clinton wing of the party. Turnbull was a big supporter. Susie Wolf Turnbull was a big supporter of Hillary Clinton as well.
Wow. Okay, before we get into the Michigan story, can you just tell me, because I wasn't really into politics during the Ben Jealous campaign, who was Susie Turnbull? Because I remember that name is his lieutenant governor pick, but she wasn't she wasn't a delegate or a senator or a county council person. Who was she?
Yeah, that was a question I was asking. I think a lot of us were. She's sort of a behind the scenes person. I think she was involved, and I just put her up on screen, on my thing. Yeah, this is where she was. She was the chair of the Maryland Democratic Party. So again, she was kind of a party. She was a party hack.
Why would he put up the chair of the Democrat? To me, and this is even too, some progressives make bad choices, but to me, that's a horrible choice to put up to appoint or want someone who's just the chair of the Democratic Party to be the candidate for lieutenant governor. One, no one really cares about lieutenant governor to a point because you don't do anything. But it's also as Ben Jealous, someone who's never held office before, you at least want to get at least some type of elected official, because Wes Moore chose Aruna Miller, who had held office. You want to get someone. It was
a great choice. I got to say this. It was a brilliant choice. She represents, as an Indian American, there's a decent number of Indian Americans. She's connected to donor class, so it helped him with the fundraising. It offset. He's a man. She's a woman.
She has some progressive
and Aruna's good. Aruna's a good politician. So I got my issues with Aruna. I'm not sitting here praising her. I used to consider her a friend. Maybe I liked her, and I don't have any issue with her as a person. But she was a very comfortable, easy centrist choice.
Yeah. And she has
center left,
center left. She has small progressive ties that she can click into and that. But you're right. Wes Moore just made a better political strategy choice. I think Ben Jealous made a horrible choice. He didn't have anything gravitating people to his campaign. But I also think Maryland's a very conservative state. We're like a fake blue. We have a lot of red mixed in with it. whatever
I
those
think the
two colors are.
fundraising issue that helped more choose Aruna may have also factored in Ben Jealous's calculations. Because again, I'm looking up Turnbull. I mentioned she is a Zionist. She was a member of the Hillel Board of Directors from 2008 to 2012. So that's, again, connections to donors, to the donor class. And maybe he thought by choosing the ultimate Dem insider, somebody who is also connected to donors, that could ingratiate himself with a community that is very centrist or center right, even among Democrats, and he could peel some of them off from Larry Hogan. Didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm also saying here too, she was the vice chair of the DNC nationally. So, ew, that's nasty. Okay, go ahead about Michigan.
Well, she's the ultimate insider, right? And that's how you were hoping, what we were hoping Ben Jealous was going to fight against.
Yeah.
But did not. At least
politicians are politicians. And unfortunately, progressive politicians show that they are more like the establishment every day. And the MAGA ones seem to not be as sold on the establishment. I think it's also, so real quick too, where do you see this as a part of the base? Do you think the base plays a part into this, where in the Republican circles it is rewarded for you to go against the establishment, where from when I see Democrat circles, the base doesn't really do any extra support if you come out in support of the establishment or if you reject the establishment, because I don't think the base is going to reprimand Zorhan or AOC for not supporting Che at all. I don't think they would support it if they went in support of Che. I don't think they would have done anything with them not supporting him.
I think Trump really upset a lot of calculations, to be honest with you. Trump ran against the establishment. I mean, Trump was an anti-establishment Republican, low energy Jeb, little Marco. I mean, he went right after the icons, if you will, of the right. Mm-hmm. He called George W. Bush a loser. Now, that kind of said to the Republicans, hey, we can go against our own to a significant degree. Now, Trump, of course, has come right back, and he's become, in a lot of ways, an establishment type Republican. Democrats, they don't have that history. Even I thought Obama was kind of an insurgent candidate, but he wanted, sadly, it seems to me, very sadly, very unfortunately, he really wanted that approval from the Democratic establishment. And we paid a price for that, to be honest with you.
Do you think?
And Bernie was defeated, right? They stopped Bernie. Trump beat the Republican establishment. Bernie did not beat the Democratic establishment. If you take on the Republican establishment from the right, and Trump did to his credit, to a little bit from the left, you can still get donations. But a Bernie threatens money, threatens power, and they're going to do what they can. They're going to pour money into defeating him.
Yeah, you're right. Do you ever think the Democrats will have a whatever we want to call it, a civil war within themselves, and you'll see like a not a Trump-like figure, but like another Bernie Sanders figure who actually can win and doesn't just win and then start saying, "Oh, I support the establishment people." Like there's a definite no. We're taking over the Democratic Party, because from my view, I don't think the Democratic Party can be taken over. I think there are just way too many powerful people in it that doesn't allow it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I wanted your take, but mine is a lot like yours. I thought Bernie could have spearheaded that movement. Bernie's in his mid-80s now. I don't see anyone coming up who comes close to Bernie. Bernie also, and sometimes this is diminished or minimized, he really isn't a Democrat. He was an independent. He had his own power base in Vermont, which allowed him to take on the Democratic elites without really any repercussions, at least certainly not it wouldn't cost him his seat. I just don't see that. Zoran, we already see him now. Look, I'm supporting Jeffries. Graham Plattner, I mean, I don't know who it would be unless I think the challenge has to come from the outside. And let me say this, Carlos, and then I want your response to that. And then let's get into this Michigan thing. But I'm sorry that it's that way. That wasn't how I saw things. In the wake of Bernie's run in 2016, and you're much younger than I guess you were just your in your late teens at that point. But I thought there was a real opportunity there, and I think there was, and it was lost. And I see now institutions like Our Revolution, even DSA, that were, I think, at that point trying to lead or push or pull the Democrats in a better direction, kind of giving up that fight and just accepting the status quo and sheepdogging for that party. So I know I'm not optimistic.
Same here. I don't think the Democratic Party is reformable. And the main reason for me is who the donor class is of the Democratic Party. And the reason I think that Democrats cannot recreate what Trump did and the whole MAGA movement did with the Republicans is kind of what you said earlier about how Trump and MAGA didn't threaten the financial economic status of the Republican Party, where the leftist wing and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party does threaten the actual economic status of the party. And the donors are like, look, you can do, if the left just cared about identity politics stuff, I think the major donors would not care. They would say, fine, you can have a revolution within your own party. I don't care. But if you're still for like corporate tax cuts, pro-war, all that, we don't care. I think the fact that the left actually wants economic policy is what is going to make it where you cannot take over you can't make a corporate party become a non-corporate party. So you have to have your own party. I just don't know if in the United States, if we are poised to ever have any other third parties here.
Well, corporate elites, I think, want culture wars. So they welcome fights over gay marriage. They welcome fights over trans athletes in the locker room, because as long as we're fighting over issues like that, we're not demanding higher taxes on them. We're not demanding an end to a genocide, which is profitable for them.
Yeah.
Let me be really provocative here, Carlos. I think the fact that those types of fights, which are often between groups that should be united in support of economic justice, in support of clawing back some of the wealth and power that the elites possess, I think that's part of the reason that the Maryland Black Caucus voted for reparations, but will not support Medicare for all or Healthy Maryland.
I've never actually thought about it like that. I mean, I agree with that. And I also think it's because a lot of people in the Maryland Black Caucus aren't progressive. A lot of them are your just mainstream establishment people. So for them, they probably do have the Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Aetna, United Healthcare in their pocket, who are like, I dare you to support. And it's not even setting up.
If they're not progressive, why did they support reparations? Because the Maryland Black Caucus, I think, was unanimous in support of reparations.
Because reparations is not. I guess this is my own bias too. I don't see reparations as something that's like a progressive or like an establishment thing. Reparations can be an establishment thing too, and I think that the reason you saw so much support, I think, for it was not because the bill was actually giving reparations. It was studying what reparations would look like. And then it was basically going to create a task force that would give a policy proposal of like, here's how you're going to fund it. Here's how much money is going to what. Here are the programs that need to be funded to what tune. Here's how much money if direct cash payments were a thing. Here's what it would be. Basically, they were going to write up a bill to have this. This is what reparations should look like in Maryland. So I think that was easier to get everyone unified on. Yeah, let's study it and see what the bill should be for it. Now, I think when you get to actual reparations bill, you're going to get a lot of differing views. Some people who don't want to go as economically far. Some people who just want to do like the whole nonprofit industrial complex route of, well, let's fund a whole bunch of nonprofits and a whole bunch of schools. I also think too, it is identity mixed in with it. You have something that is going to, I don't want to say just help Black people, because even so, reparations helps other races and groups of people too. Just because if the most disadvantaged people do well, everyone else benefits as well. But it's an easier sell to your own people of like how we should help you specifically. So yeah.
Well, and let me just add, and I know you're not disagreeing with this, but it does pit groups against each other that are, I believe, natural allies against the elites. So if you promise, or you do even if you do give one-time payment to descendants of slaves, that doesn't really threaten elites, and it does allow for a fight to say, look at those out-of-touch Democrats. They're trying to give money to these people who are, not deserving, or whatever the argument they want, whatever racist coded argument they want to make, they can make that argument. But if you have true health care for all, true Medicare for all, that does take power away from the billionaires, takes power away from the owners of the healthcare companies, and it also takes power away from employers who use the threat of lost healthcare to keep employees in line.
Yeah. And wages low too, because they say, hey, we can't pay you as much, but here's some healthcare. No, you're right.
All of it.
I guess I don't see it the same way as you. I get your viewpoint, because just on the basis of just hearing it, it makes sense. But I guess my pushback to it is, we see this happen all the time with other things. Like we have bills that just go towards giving like veterans tax cuts. We have things that go towards specific groups, and we don't see as much like up in arms about it. It is something when it does come to helping people that others in their mind see as like non-deserving of it. And I think similar to like bills like Second Look, or bills that do with legal.
Explain Second Look to me, because you mentioned that. I don't know what that is.
Oh yeah, Second Look was a bill that passed recently that allowed people who are either serving life sentences, or either like extremely long sentences, who were incarcerated when they were under the age, I think, of like 25, to be able, after a number of years, petition the court to have their sentence either reduced or modified. So it basically takes the people, and this is not a nice way to say it, but I'm just be more straight up. People who killed people who did like very
violent offenders, rapists, armed robbers.
Now, rape actually is something that was, I think, taken out of the bill. So like certain degrees, or like all degrees of rape, cannot be modified. But it is. So
let me interrupt you here. I don't agree with that. I think, first of all, I do support Second Look. We have draconian sentences in this country. People who do bad things we need to be protected. I'm not a defund the police, or at least not using the term in that way, because I think it is an off-putting term. But I'm not, I do definitely agree with Zoran that we should be spending a lot more money on prevention and on addressing root causes than we do on policing. But I don't believe in just taking all funds from the police. So I'm not there. But yes, I agree with Zoran on all that. I also agree that people who were arrested and convicted of crimes that they actually did commit, where they did terrible things, should have a second look. Once you're 45, 50, young men, adolescent men, and I know for myself, not like there's a great guy now, but I was a real jerk then. I didn't commit violent crimes, but my propensity, the anger level, what have you, was high. So once you get older, it does rough the edges off. I see that in my puppy, right? I have a little puppy, but she gets older, she's not going to be as aggressive and feisty. So And I don't mean that to be, I mean, it's just, that's
right.
life, right?
Yeah,
that's
right.
life.
As you get older, you get more calmer, you get more settled down, you relax a little bit.
And you're also not like full of, you maybe not as strong either. You may not have the physical ability to beat people up and get into bar fights or whatever you did. So I totally support that second look. And even if it was a crime like rape or murder, well, would you likely commit it again? What was the rape? Was it a he said, she said date rape situation, one allegation? Or are you somebody who, because that's what second look should do, is look at the actual circumstances and just make those. So I don't think any crime should be exempt from second look.
Same here. I definitely think so. I mean, definitely. And as someone who's worked with people who have been who went to prison or jail for a myriad of different crimes. I mean, people change. People are not the same people they were, especially when you're talking about people who were arrested at like 16, 17, 18 years old. Sometimes they do the wrong things as kids. And sometimes also you're put in a horrible life situation where you may in your mind think what you're doing is normal. And once you are separate, or I don't want to say once you are separated from a society, but like as you get older, you start to realize, no, it was the things that I learned taught me that this is right, but it's actually wrong. Or
the gangbangers, right? There's so much peer pressure. This may be the one place you feel at home. You're accepted. You're welcome. And
you're safe.
When you're 16 years old, 15 years old, you'll do things. Let me just throw one more point in. I want to get into divestment.
Yes,
but
definitely.
What about, because this is where I would say I have a queasiness, is the pedophiles, because it is, I mean, I guess I have some sympathy for people who are impelled to molest children. I'm not even talking about like the priests who go after adolescent boys who are repressed and are really gay. And I'm talking about people who go after like prepubescent children. Yeah. I don't know how they might not get the second look because the decision might be they can't be trusted around children ever.
Yeah, me personally, I look at it as, I think and this is going to be controversial too. Like on the face of it, it's hard to just like defend that. But then I also look and say it is people who with therapy, with the right amount of services can change. But I also think there has to be precautions put in place. There needs to be a registered sex offenders list. There needs to be parameters like we kind of have now of like, you can't live in such proximity to like kids and things like that. Like we have to take precautions of people. And I think that, it's one of those things that I wish our carceral system was more geared towards rehabilitation of people and setting systems up where like when you get out, you're not going to repeat the same behavior, or it's so much kind of pushing you to not repeat that behavior that it's almost impossible for you to do that. But unfortunately, we see when you go to jail and prison, you're just kind of put around maybe even worse situations that you were when you were outside the wall. So you kind of fall into worse situations, and then you can't get a job, can't go to school, all that.
It's part of prevention is to keep the crime from happening in the first place. But then if somebody is commits a crime, then prevention would also include, teaching them, putting them in positions where they're not incarcerated, but they're also not going to be committing crime. So I think we see this the same way. And I am optimistic that Azoran will do that, but there's going to be so much pressure against him in that regard. All right, let's talk about this. I'm just going to make that Executive Decisions my program. Your show, you do what you like, Left-Handed Leftist. I was there. I just did whatever Carlos wanted. He said jump. I said how high. It was his show. I'm good with that. On
ready
Halitics.
To start jumping, Hal, whenever you're ready.
I think I can barely get off the ground. All right, victory. So I tried to confirm this. I was going to talk about this yesterday on my program with Chuck, but we didn't get to it. This was posted on Instagram. I couldn't quite confirm this, Carlos, in Michigan media. I went to Michigan Live and various other sources. It's not absolutely confirmed to my satisfaction, but let's assume it's true for the case of this discussion. Michigan Divest says that the state pension fund will no longer purchase Israeli bonds. They just had a bond come due. It was paid off, and now they're done, they say. I think that's good. I hope I want to see more of that.
Yeah. No, I love this. I mean, yeah, this is showing that in certain areas and certain places, people are getting in the mood of like, why do we keep supporting a genocidal apartheid state and ethnic cleansing state? It is good that they're one. It's weird that the retirement system was invested in Israel. It seems weird that for a state, the retirement funds are invested in another country, like who could be doing whatever they want with the money. No, this is good. This is a sign that the pro-Palestine movement is winning, that they are making changes, and that these protests are not for nothing, which it's hard to kind of in 2024 see, or 2025, excuse me, see protests moving forward. But this shows that continued pressure can actually make change.
Yeah, and another story from Michigan, and I think it's not incidental it's Michigan, because doesn't Michigan have about the largest Arab population or Arab American population in the country? So I think that's a big reason we're seeing this, although they have a terrible candidate for Senate, U.S. Senate, in Haley Stevens. But there's also, I believe, he may be Muslim who's challenging her. So we're hoping we can defeat Haley Stevens. The Democratic establishment is 100% behind Haley Stevens running for U.S. Senate. But this is from the Michigan Daily, the newspaper of the University of Michigan. And so the college government there is calling on the trustees of the university to divest. Good luck with that. I would be, my school, Wesleyan, did exactly the same thing, and the trustees rejected that call. So
now, can you explain that for me, as someone who went to culinary college school? Can you explain how the whole trustees things work?
So wait, before I do that, so your culinary school does not have trustees, I guess? Is that?
The most that I knew we had was just like, we had a quote unquote dean who was like the head of the school. We never talked about trustees. We didn't know. Yeah, I just knew the school just ran. That was it.
Well, the way it works at Wesleyan, and I'm going to assume it's the same at a lot of all these other schools, is that you actually have the graduates elect trustees, and there are a number of trustees for different class years. So there's trustees for the classes that are like 35 to 50 years past. There are trustees for 35 to 20 years past. So whichever class you're in votes on a slate. And there's also some at large. So a friend of mine actually ran a few years ago, and of course I voted for him because it was, within that cohort. So there's like 8 or 9, there's probably 9 trustees. The president of the university is always going to be a trustee, and some other folks too. Usually, the people who win have a lot of money. They're maybe famous. They're TV star, someone like that. A big time banker that has a lot of money. They can send out flyers to everyone in the class, explain their positions. So definitely, there's an advantage to having wealth and fame to getting elected. And then the trustees make a lot of the decisions for the university. I don't know what they give to the president, but they can do anything they want. They can hire and fire people. They can. Now, if you have tenure, you have to have cause. I mean, you fire a professor,
power.
But they have a lot of power. Yeah, they set the direction for the university. Yeah.
And so Wesley was like, they were not going to divest from
exactly
Israel. Wow. So I actually looked it up while we were talking. So I went to the culinary Institute of Virginia, we did not have a board of trustees because we are a branch under ECPI. And for all those people who remember when I was growing up, we used to get all those like commercial for like Everest College and this college and this college. ECPI was one of those like, want to learn about culinary or nursing or technology? Come to ECPI University. Da 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 da. They have a board of trustees, but the smaller colleges do not. But that is wild. I think that should be a movement. I wonder what UMD is doing if they're divesting, because
the state schools are different. They usually have like boards of regents who are appointed by the governor, right?
Oh.
So Hogan appointed some of the people who are governors of the University of Maryland. So did Wes Moore. I'm sure when people's terms come up, the president of the university is going to be on that board, just like on a private college like I attended. You may have elections too. I think in California, the University of California Board of Regents isn't just chosen by, Schwarzenegger and Gavin Newsom and what have you, but well, he was the governor, so he got to pick.
I know,
but I think there's
weird thinking him
elections too is how I believe that works.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know.
Do you see this as a growing movement? Do you think that this will be a growing movement, that the BDS movement will come back around?
Well, I think it hasn't gone away, right? I mean, I was pressuring a council member today before the program in Montgomery County, and I was debating whether I should say who it is. I will say it, Marilyn Balcombe, and I give her a lot of credit, or at least credit, for meeting with one of her constituents. She is not my council member. I believe my council member, the one I vote for in my district, and there's also at-large ones as well, but the one in my district, I believe, is Kate Stewart. And so Balcombe met with a Palestinian-American constituent who had gone into her office there in Rockville and said, you should vote against funding the Maryland Israeli Development Center, which gets about $45,000 or so money, taxpayer money from Montgomery County alone, through the Montgomery County Council, not through the state. And so she went in, this activist went in and said, you're funding a program that is bringing weapons manufacturers and supporters of Israel into our county, and I don't want you to do it. I don't think you should do it. So Balcombe, to her credit, said, well, I'll meet with you. You can bring some allies if you want, and we'll meet. And I volunteered to go, and there were a whole lot of discussion about it, and she talked about, Balcombe, the council member, talked about the process by which the funds were allocated, and she had some questions about the process. The constituent talked about being a Palestinian and how awful it is for her to see what Israel is doing and for her county to be supporting that. And I said to Balcombe, I said, look, maybe the problem here is because she said she wasn't going to promise anything. She wasn't going to agree not to vote for continued funding. She wasn't going to agree to vote against continued funding, but she was going to do more research into how it comes about in the first place. So I said to her, maybe part of the problem is you don't really see Israel as a criminal state. You don't view their actions to be as evil as we do. Yeah. And maybe we need to discuss that. And she said, I'm not going there. We're not having that conversation. I'm not having that conversation. And I said, well, why not? Isn't that really relevant? Don't you think it matters where the taxpayer money goes? If it's going to fund something that's truly evil, that's monstrous, isn't that really important? And she said, that's not where I'm going.
Wow.
And I said, would you vote to fund an organization that wanted to build a whites-only community in Montgomery County? So she said, well, that's illegal. This isn't illegal. And one of my colleagues said it didn't used to be illegal. Well, and she said, I don't know about that. She said before, during segregation, it wasn't illegal. And she didn't, she said, well, I don't know about that. I can't respond to that. I should have said, so the only objection you would have had is that it's illegal otherwise. I brought up sweatshops. What if you had a group that wanted to bring in these, very low wage manufacturing in the county? You'd have more jobs, but the pay would be lousy and the working conditions would be poor. Would you be okay with that? And she didn't answer. Because presumably that would be legal, I assume, depending on the situation. She would say, well, as long as they're complying with all the rules,
right?
Yeah.
Hey, they pay at least the minimum wage and they follow the labor laws of here, fine, do whatever you want to. And I think it even makes it worse because it's like, I think a lot of politicians can have this like removed view of it because they also like, oh, well, it's not happening directly in the country. Like, it's not something that they can physically look at. They look at it as, oh, we send money and then we don't really see where the money's going unless you're looking at the news and looking at the bombing and stuff. So they try to take this like step back, removed approach. But you're right. If it was something in Montgomery County, I think it would be harder for them to ignore it. But I also want to ask you about the BDS movement in Maryland, because Hogan's executive order is still in place to where state agencies cannot go with BDS. And that was a big thing that people were pushing Wes Moore to do. And I want to know, as the election comes up for Wes Moore, do you think that that's going to be a big ticket thing, or do you think that will ever be a governor who will remove the executive order?
So I'm going to say it would be very difficult to do. And I'm going to put it back in your court in a second. But I don't know how many Jews there are in the state of Maryland per capita. I think it's a relatively high percentage compared to other states. I know Baltimore at one time was the city with the second largest Jewish population in America after New York City. I don't know now. I would assume also the suburbs of D.C., where I live, has a relatively high percentage of Jewish residents because of the federal government. A lot of Jews are in law. There's a lot of lawyers. So I think that makes it tougher because, sadly, many Jewish people feel very close to Israel and support Israel, and understandably maybe, but hey, time to divorce. Denial ain't just a river in Egypt.
Shout out Wendy
So
Williams.
I definitely, but I do think that makes it tough. And also because Jews are wealthy on average and give a lot of money to these politicians in return for favors and in return for agreement to do what they want them to do. And there's also a lot of Jewish lawmakers who seem to be Zionists, like people like Ben Kramer and Cheryl Kagan and others. So I think all of that makes it tougher. Now I'm going to put it in your court. There are a lot of Jews in Maryland, but I think there are more blacks. And I think if black Marylanders were willing to say, wait a second, this is crazy. Why are we supporting? And this goes to a Facebook conversation that I actually had with an African-American in Maryland who was very critical of those criticizing Israel, saying, you don't do enough for black people. Why are you going after Israel when we have so many problems here in this in our own community? And my answer is, well, that money that goes to Israel, yes, we should use that to help blacks, to help poor black communities and other communities too that are struggling. I think if because of 30% maybe of Maryland isn't the highest percentage of blacks in Maryland compared to any other state that isn't in the Confederacy. That wasn't in the Confederacy. Yeah. Maryland was a slave state, not a Confederate state. So given that, do you see a movement among black Marylanders against Israel? I don't. And I see you shaking your head. Well, that's it's disappointing for both of our groups then.
It is. It's very disappointing. And I think because the stranglehold that I think that there's more support maybe in the black community than there is in the Jewish community to do BDS. But I think it's also you have a lot of black people who are, or I don't want to just single out black people, but you have black people just like you have just average Marylanders and Americans who are so like removed from that, who look at it like, okay, so what? It's happening in some other country. We got our own problems here. And I think this is the American issue of not learning about foreign policy just because America has lasted as it is, as like it only matters what's going on within the borders, and everything outside of it, who cares? But I also think you have a lot of Black Zionists. You have a lot of black people who are Zionists, and they don't look at these similarities between you fighting for Zionism is in conflict with you fighting for a pro-Black agenda. And I'll say to the person who made that comment is, you can do both. You can speak out about the horrific treatment of Black people at the hands of police, the redlining, the environmental racism, all that, and you can speak to the genocide going on in Gaza. And sometimes they're actually similar to each other, because a lot of the police in Maryland and across the country are trained by the IDF. They are trained on the same level from how that country does policing, and military is a reflection on how this country does policing. So there are ties to it, where I think you combating Israel is you also defending Black people as well.
Yeah, that seems to me kind of obvious almost, right? It's kind of like a duh. I mean, if you got to protest injustice wherever you see it, and we don't want to curate, say, well, we have to protest here or we can't protest there. Yeah. But I do I'm bending over backwards because I didn't really agree with this person at all. And I often don't, but I will say it this way. I will say I understand if you're in a community or you are yourself struggling, that it's hard to see an outpouring of compassion and empathy for another group, and to say, well, why aren't we getting the same amount of concern shown to us? And I understand that. I think it's a little bit misplaced, because I think a lot of the same people who are challenging Israel, and I include myself in that, have done, fought what we consider to be the good fight for economic justice and an end to, systemic racism here as well. So, some people might say, well, how you're not really an ally, you're not a big fan of reparations and this and that. And I would say, well, I'm a big fan of making make sure everyone have enough and no one has too much, and giving everyone opportunities and protecting people. So maybe I'm not a big believer in focusing on helping people because they're a member of a particular identity group, but I am in terms of helping people because they need help. That's my test. My test is, do you need help? Period. End of story. Right. And so I resent the implication that I'm not doing enough for people in your group, but I get that concern. I get that. That's why I get really angry, I think, with a lot of Jewish people, because Jewish people are privileged on balance, right? There's poor Jews. I know it. I get it. I'm not saying there aren't, but on balance, we're pretty privileged. Shouldn't we have compassion for those who aren't and that we're hurting? Or that not we, I'm not, but that our co-religionists are.
No, you're right. I think there needs to be a collective fight equally for not just human rights, but just all of our systemic racism, sexism, all that. There needs to be one homogenous fight to say, hey, we're fighting to end all these different isms, and we do it on a united front. I would love to see a day when you have white farmers working to not just remove themselves from factory farms pressures, but also support the rebuilding of Black farmers, which have been decimated over the years. And I think that our country has done a great job, and you've talked about this a lot, of pitting groups against each other, to where it's either you or this person. And it's not us all coming together and looking at the wealthy people. And I think one thing that this is one issue that is really getting my hopes up of bringing people across racial lines together is the fight around data centers. It seems like that fight is getting people, Black people, white people, Latinos, Asian Americans, everyone is coming
Republicans,
together.
there are Republican governors who are really annoyed about this, who are saying to Trump, wait a second, don't jam these down our throat. We don't want them.
Yeah, Republicans and Democrats are both coming together. And the crazy thing is Republicans and Democrats are coming together and fighting against their politicians, because the politicians, no matter what party they are overwhelmingly in support of data centers because of the quote unquote money that's going to come into the government, but also because of the donations that you see a lot of these big tech companies make. So it is giving me some hope that there are some issues that are bringing people together.
All right, Left-Handed Leftist, we're past the hour. You got final word. Was that it, or do you got something else? You want to promote your podcast?
Oh, yes.
Do you have something else? Whatever you want to. This is your time.
Awesome. So yes, please, one, click like, subscribe, call in, all the good stuff to Halitics, and for Hal always continuously to have me on in these amazing conversations that we have. Please support his podcast. And then also, after you're done supporting his, or after you subscribe and hit the notification bar on his podcast, go over to the Left-Handed Leftist and hit the subscribe and follow and all the other buttons that you can hit. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Prime Music, all the different podcast streaming platforms, and also on TikTok as well. Just look up Left-Handed Leftist and you'll find us. I have a conversation actually coming up. Our next podcast is coming out. The full podcast is coming out on Wednesday, and we're talking to Oman Damola, who ran for Gaithersburg City Council, talking about his race, talking about the issues in Gaithersburg, things like that. So I'm really excited for it to come out.
All right, I am too, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. I want to thank you all for being part of Halitics. Always a shout out to Carlos. I think I'm not going to let Carlos talk. I just muted you, Carlos. But I think he's going to be back Monday. But I don't want to promise that. We'll talk. He's nodding, so I think he will be back Monday, because that's the regular day for Carlos. We had to do it Friday, which will always accommodate. But we're going to try to keep it up Mondays to the extent possible. We'll have a show Tuesday. No Arlen, so it's no Arlen Tuesday, and then the rest of the week I'm off, and then I'll be back again. Have a great weekend, and thanks to all for being part of Halitics.